Today we're going to be learning about ratios and rates. Some of this we did learn last year, but we are going to adding on to it this year. So first thing we're going to do is talk about some vocabulary terms. Our first term is ratio. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities using division. Okay, so we learned last year the 3 different ways to write a ratio is in fraction form, with the word to, and with a colon, which is those 2 dots. So we have 3 to 4, 3 to 4, 3 to 4. Okay, 3 different ways we can do that. Our next vocab word is a rate. And a rate is a ratio of 2 quantities with different units. Okay, so for example, this would be 60 miles every 2 hours. Okay, we did use those keywords for every last year when we wrote these as sentences or word phrases. So we might want to remember that as we're going. Okay. A rate with a denominator of 1 is called a unit rate. And again, we kind of talked about this last year a little bit. That unit rate is for every 1 hour. So if we were given 60 miles for 2 hours, we could divide that top and bottom by 2 to get 30 miles for 1 hour. So now that we know what a ratio, rate, and unit rate are, we can get started on some examples. This first example is just going to talk about finding ratios and rates. All right, so there are 45 males and 60 females in a subway car. The subway car travels 2.5 miles in 5 minutes. The first part is going to ask us, part A is going to ask us to find the ratio of males to females. And we're going to write this as a fraction. Okay, so we're going to look back up into our problem. There were 45 males to 60 females. Okay, but the biggest thing about rates is that when we write them, we want to write them in simplest form. Okay, so we're going to have to do some math to reduce this. Well, let's think of what we can divide both the top and bottom by. We know that we could divide them both by 5. So if we weren't sure of the larger number quite yet, we could divide them both by 5, excuse me. We would get 9 over 12. And then we can see that we can divide both of those by 3 to get 3 over 4. And remember when we reduce this, we still want to put 3 males to 4 females. Okay. Now, if you did notice at the beginning that they're both divisible by 15, you could have just taken that one step to do it. But if you can't, just keep going until you get 2 numbers that are not able to get reduced. So the ratio of males to females is 3 to 4. This could also be written as 3/4 or 3:4. Okay, so any of those forms would work. Part B is going to ask us, and we're going to do this in a different color, find the speed of the subway car. Well, they told us 2.5 miles in 5 minutes. Okay, in order to find the speed, we want to know how fast it goes per 1 minute. All right, so let's start this off. We're going to use fractions again. So we have 2.5, and that's miles, every 5 minutes. Okay, we want it to get equal to 1 minute to know how fast it travels every minute. Well, how do we get from 5 to 1? We are going to divide because we are going to a smaller number, and we're going to divide 5 by 5 to get 1. Oops, sorry. Okay, so what we do to the bottom of the fraction, like we learned last year, we have to do to the top. So we are going to take 2.5 and divide it by 5. So in our calculator, we're going to take 2.5 and divide it by 5, and we get 0.5 or 0.5, and that's miles per minute. Okay, so the speed is 0.5 miles per minutes. So a half mile every minute. All right, let's move on to example number 2. The ratio table shows the cost for different amounts of artificial turf. Artificial turf is what they put on like soccer fields or football fields. It's kind of like fake grass. And then we're going to find the unit rate in dollars per square foot. So we want that unit rate in dollars per square foot, meaning we want the square feet to be 1. Okay, so we want the amount to be 1. Okay, we're going to use a ratio from the table to find the unit rate. Okay, so we can just use this first entry here. Okay, and we have the amount. Remember, a unit rate always has 1 at the bottom. Okay, so our amount is going to go at the bottom. Our amount is 25, and our cost is $100. Okay, we have to be careful that we're paying attention to what the question's asking for and how the table's laid out, because notice how these two values are switched. Okay, now all we have to do is simplify this fraction to get it to be $1. Sorry, 1 square foot. Okay, how do we go from 25 to 1? Well, we're going to divide because we're getting smaller. So we notice that 1 is a smaller number than 25, so we know we're dividing. If we were multiplying, it would get bigger. And we have to divide by 25 in order to get down to 1. 25 divided by 25 is 1. Do the same thing on the top. Take 100 divided by 25, and we get 4. Okay, so the unit rate is $4 per square foot. Right. Now some questions are going to kind of have like this section be empty, so you have to decide what is increasing each time, and you'll see that it's multiplying by 4. Okay. So to get back here, you'd have to divide by 4. And we're pretty used to ratio tables from last year. Okay, so I feel confident in your abilities to read a ratio table. Our last example is solving a ratio problem. Okay, so you mix 1/2 of yellow paint for every 3/4 of blue paint. 1/2 of yellow, oops, that is not blue. 3/4 of blue paint to make 15 cups of green paint. Okay, so this is our ratio and we want to make 15 cups. How much yellow paint and blue paint do we use? Okay, so the first thing we have to do is find out how many cups we get when we just use our ratio, 1/2 and 3/4. So in the table already, I filled in 1/2 yellow cups and 3/4 blue cups. And to know the total cups, we're just going to add those together. Remember, when we're adding fractions, we need common denominators. So this becomes 2/4 plus 3/4, which equals 5/4. Okay. We want to know what it is for 15 cups. So we want our total last entry to be 15 cups. All right. Now we just have to play around with what we need to multiply by to get there. Okay, so let's look at our 5/4. Let me erase this. Let's look at our 5/4. We can multiply 5/4 by some number to get it to be 5. Okay. 5/4 times some number, we're just going to say x equals 5. Okay. And if we can get it to equal to 5, then we have an easy transition here from 5 to 15 by multiplying by 3. All right. So let's just solve this equation. If we have 5/4 times x and we want to know what x is, we are going to divide both sides by 5/4. When we divide fractions, we keep change flips. So we have, and I'm going to just show this work up here, 5/1 times 4/5. Multiply across, we get 20/5, which is equal to 4. So if we multiply by 4, we can get this total cups to equal 5, which makes it easy to get to 15. Okay. Now what we have to remember about ratios is whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So this first time we multiplied by 4, so we have to take 1/2 and multiply that by 4. To make 4 into a fraction, I put it over 1. I get 4 over 2, which reduces to 2. Okay, I also have to multiply this 3/4 by 4. So 3/4 times 4 over 1 gives us 12 over 4, which reduces to 3. Okay, last but not least, we wanted to get this 5 to be a 15, because that's what the question asked for. So we can multiply 5 times 3 to get 15. Whatever we do to one number, we have to do to both the others. So 1/2 times, I know my work's kind of all over the place, sorry, 3, which is 3 over 2. Hold on, sorry, we're not multiplying 1/2 times 3. We are multiplying 2 times 3 because that is where we are starting next. Because we're going from the 5 to the 15, not the 5/4 to the 15. See, even I can make mistakes. So we're going to do 2 times 3, which equals 6. Right. Same thing to this 3. We are going to multiply it by 3. And 3 times 3, which equals 9. Okay. We now know how many cups of yellow paint and how many cups of blue paint we need to get 15 total cups of paint. So you are going to use 6 cups of yellow paint and 9, that is not blue, 9 cups of blue paint. All right. As always, if you have any questions, please pause, rewatch the video, write down any questions you have on the side of your paper wherever you have room, so that you remember to ask me them in class.